Ladies and gentlemen, I've always been taught that it's good to be gracious in defeat. And ironically for me, I've had a lot of chances this season to get used to being gracious in defeat, because once again, we've seen Chelsea end a game in miserable fashion, this time against Manchester United at Old Trafford, a match we were live for on the kickoff. If you are not already, the Kickoff YouTube channel is linked in the description. Make sure you follow it because we're live every single week at the moment. Defeat's gone by. I've been able to maybe walk out with a little bit of optimism, maybe be able to say, okay, well, there's things that we can be slightly looking on the bright side about, because there's things we can take away from this and learn from. But I've got to call it for what it is, man. Brian, what are you saying? Because that was awful.
You know what, mate? I feel everything you've been saying, because I feel like, because two of my best mates are Josh and Joey, both Chelsea fans. So, like, by osmosis, I'm getting an idea of how the Chelsea fan base are feeling, right? And with every other defeat or dodgy performance or win that maybe shouldn't have been a win or whatever happened, there's always like, it's early days. We're still figuring out things. Pochettino is still trying to understand the team, yada, yada, yada. Excuses are there, and they're good excuses. They're fair, they're legit, right? But the more that this goes on, the more that patterns start to build, and the more that those patterns build, the more that they are not arguable. And tonight, Manchester United were in disarray. They were banning the press off the back of one of their worst performances in their history, dominated by Newcastle. And you're thinking they're there for the taking. And as much as it's Old Trafford, still the pressure is on them. And they came out of the traps, and Chelsea just did not perform. It was so flat. It was so careless. It was so disorganised. And more importantly, my main thing about Chelsea that shocked me tonight is how careless you were with the ball. You gave the ball back to them in defence, in midfield, in attack, constantly. I mean, it was staggering, mate.
It was a hard watch. It was a hard watch for me, because I think that one thing I'm crediting this Chelsea side of massively this season is win, lose or draw, we seem to be in entertaining games. Win, lose or draw, we seem to be giving passion. And ultimately that passion sometimes is misplaced, because it leads to us getting sendings off and silly bookings, and we've got a lot of disciplinary record issues. But at least we can see a bit of fight for the badge there. And I think that tonight, we just really didn't see that. We showed a lack of class. We showed a lack of clinicalness in front of goal. But more importantly than anything here, we just can't defend to save our lives.
This was a game that showed the worst of Chelsea in every capacity. And even still, Cole Palmer still had a great moment. Like, that is the one thing that any Chelsea fan can go, fuck me, how did he squeeze that in, right? Credit to the guy. But looking at the defence, so shambolic. There was times where every defence is supposed to be in a flat line of whatever you're in, right? You got to hold your line. The first opportunity that felt the Manchester United, they were squeezed together in two blocks of two. They were just shambolic. They didn't know where they were. And that continued throughout the game. Enzo carelessly giving the ball away. Caicedo looked okay, but still giving the ball away. And going forward, the athleticism of Jackson was decent. And Mudryk is an athlete as well. But technically, they looked so poor. And again, if this team was any other team, Brentford, mid-table team, whatever, you'd be like, yeah, whatever. This is a team that cost a lot of money, who have a top coach, and they don't look like they're getting top coaching. They don't look like they're... You know the drills in training where it's about keep ball? They don't look like they ever do that. No. That was the main thing that shocked me, is not just the positional sense, but how careless they are with the ball. And only Cole Palmer's goal and a few other little moments were like little light rays of light in a sea of shit.
It's very hard when you're as gutted as I am right now to be able to give a level-headed take on this. But ultimately,
let it go.
Maybe I'll come back to it when I've calmed down a little bit. But here's my my sort of analysis on what we've seen over these last few games. Early on in the season, especially the Liverpool match, opening day of the season, for 20 minutes, we looked like we shit the bed. We looked nervous. But all of a sudden, the play started to come together and I started to see something. In those 60-odd minutes against Liverpool, I'd seen more in that one match than I'd seen the entirety of last season. All of a sudden, the play looked good. The one-touch passing, almost tick-a-tack style football for a little while in there was in there. And then even in the matches we were losing against West Ham, for example, we were playing well. And today, we just looked like we had no options. We were hanging on to the ball way too long in every opportunity. We can say there about Enzo and Caicedo maybe being all right. Let's be honest, mate. Let's be honest. Like, they weren't all right, were they?
No,
do you know what I mean?
They absolutely don't look like £100 million each.
They didn't make match-losing errors. And that's all you can say about them. But when you sign someone for 100 million, they don't put the price tag on their head.
They were against Amrabat and McTominay. McTominay took the game on by the scruff of the neck. They didn't look like they were in his league.
No, not at all.
How are we saying that?
Not at all. And ultimately, I wouldn't even say either of those two boys are the reason we lost the game. The reason that we lost the game today will ultimately come down to our lack of potency in front of goal, but more than ever, just the lack of defending.
The defensive positioning was shocking.
To
drop Reece James, and I fully rate Reece James. Why was he dropped? That is staggering. And look, I don't think it's a coincidence that Wan-Bissaka and Reece James both get dropped the week after they play Anthony Gordon. But Reece James is the best defender and maybe the best player at Chelsea. And I know he didn't even look great when he came on, but when you're a defensive shambles and he sat on the bench, it's a head scratcher.
Yeah, I think that when you look at some of the performances of Chelsea so far this season, we've been very fortunate, not so much maybe as Man United, who have obviously scraped by in a few matches, and listen, winning is a trait that can't go underestimated, but have maybe scraped by in a few matches where they haven't played well and have still kept themselves in a position where if things start to go well for them as it did tonight, they're still within a chance of getting those European places, especially if there is 5 in the table this season. But when you look at Chelsea, I actually think that early on, we were looking at underlying numbers and we were saying, okay, we're 10th, but actually we deserve to be a little bit higher up there. I think today was 2 things. Firstly, for Chelsea fans, it was a long, hard lesson in actually where we are this season, actually what we need to expect of this season, being nothing in the league and hopefully a domestic cup run, being that we're coming up against you boys in a couple of weeks. I'm not too confident. But as well as that, what we need to look at Man United here is sort of look at Man United and say, do you know what? They did show a bit of fight today. They did show a bit of character and they did show they've got a lot more than Chelsea at this moment in time. But let me just say, that's not vintage Man United. And I feel like the teams above us in the table, i.e. a West Ham, i.e. definitely an Aston Villa off tonight's performance, and a lot of other teams would have put Man United to the sword tonight. It wasn't like they were even that good.
When Manchester United are off the back of the performance against Newcastle, the main thing that they were criticised for in that game was a lack of heart, a lack of fight, and a lack of determination. For them to outfight you, I know I'm on a Chelsea channel. You know you've got problems then.
Yeah.
That is where... This is the game for me where I think previously Chelsea fans have been able to go and take positives and understand it's early on. This is the first time where I think they should be going, fuck, we're nowhere where we should be. Like, this was horrendous. And
mate, listen, you say, look, I know I'm on a Chelsea channel, but we've got to keep it real on it, mate. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it wasn't great.
To quote a great man, Ali G, we do have to keep it real. But at the end of the day, like, we've got to say it as we see it. And at the end of the day, I can wax lyrical about Chelsea when we have a 2-2 draw against Arsenal or a 4-4 draw against Man City or a win against the 9-man Spurs, and I will continue to do so every time we get a win this season, because for me, football's about the moments and I'll enjoy them when they come. But also, fair is fair, and when we play shit like we have tonight, I've got to call it out. I've got to say it and say we played massively under what I expected from us. What I didn't expect before a ball was kicked this season is to be sat here 14 games into the season and to say, God, we're a different team when Conor Gallagher comes out, because he was a man that a lot of us thought we were going to sell. But at the end of the day, we got to be honest, Conor Gallagher was massively missed tonight.
To be fair to Chelsea, right, as a club, Scott McTominay was the player that dragged Man United through. So for all the money that Man United have spent, for all the money that Chelsea have spent, homegrown lads who give a shit always make the difference. But when I look at this Chelsea team, I say a keeper that is actually man of the match today, even though you lost 2-1. A defence that is completely disorganised, that consistently concedes silly goals. A midfield that can't keep a hold of the ball and desperately needs, like, I'm a Newcastle fan, obviously. I watch Bruno Guimaraes every week, who does the things that Caicedo and Enzo do, but then also controls the game. You haven't got a game controller. Huge weakness. Then going forward, Cole Palmer, incredibly technical. I don't know if he's as quick as he could be, but he's got something there. But when I look at Mudryk and Jackson, so wasteful. Like, there's just not enough there for you to ever get even close to doing anything serious in the Premier League right now. So for all Chelsea have spent a lot of money, this was the reality check of, Jackson and Mudryk and a few other those players, while they're not horrendous, they're not anywhere near the level that Chelsea should be at.
You had a few young players on the pitch when Newcastle played Man United the other day. You had Lewis Miley on there, you had Anthony Gordon on there, but you know what the average age was?
26?
26, 27 on that pitch on a day. And ultimately, if you take Thiago Silva out of our team, man, the average age is about 21 years old.
It looks it.
And I think we both agree that we need a few older heads in there, a couple of guys that are able to steady the ship. A couple of guys.
Reece James is a leader, and he's a kid. Like, if the fact that a lad that young is your captain speaks volumes.
But do you know what having an older head in there does? It means that the moment Robert Sanchez gets down to that penalty today, the older heads in there go, right, now you fucking know what time it is.
Or half time.
And now
you go into half time 1-1.
Exactly.
Like, the fact that you guys gave up the first half was terrible. But the crime, the real crime isn't giving up the first half. It's Old Trafford, it's Man United, big reaction from the players, got a point to prove. Ten Hag has put a rocket up to them. Okay, fair enough. Second half though, when you managed to get in at 1-1 by a miracle from Cole Palmer and Onana not being where he should have been, that's when you go, right, lads, we've got a real fucking chance here. Let's put it on them. They came out, second half was pathetic, man. Not good.
It was probably worse. In fact, it was definitely worse than the first half. And I think that you can look at that second half and you can go, right, you know, the team didn't play well, but also I've got to look at personnel. And at the moment, despite what some people might think, and they might say, well, you spent $1 billion, so you shouldn't have to worry about this, but we have got an injury crisis. We have got players like Chukwuemeka that are out. We have got players like Nkunku that was brought in to do a big job and be a first team starter. Lavia, who would be pivotal in that pivot role.
If I'm Lavia right now, I'm watching those midfielders consistently give the ball away and thinking, I've got a chance of getting the first team spot easily here, because they're not delivering.
He should be displacing one of them.
Yeah, easily. It wasn't. It's staggering to me that a year ago we bought Bruno Guimaraes, and then we've got Joe Linton, who used to be a striker, and I'm watching Enzo and Caicedo, and it's not like they're terrible footballers, but you are nowhere. Like, if you're playing Amrabat and McTominay, who are cobbled together, no way did any Man United fan at the start of this season think Amrabat and McTominay are going to be our main two centre midfielders. Yet Enzo and Caicedo were the dream centre midfield, and yet you're getting done by these kids. It's shocking me.
I think that you are probably the worst person for me to put this point to, but because of the manager you've got sort of pulling strings at St James's Park at the minute. But if you look at the three top managers in the league, Mikel Arteta took an Arsenal team to a lower league position than he started off with them in. Jurgen Klopp, you know, he took that Liverpool team over, and ultimately I think in their first season they didn't jump at all in places. I think they finished about the same. Even Pep Guardiola, the man who's leading the sort of titles accumulated at the moment in this Premier League over recent times, definitely last decade or so, he took over Manchester City and in his first season wasn't able to propel them up the league. So I look at Mauricio Pochettino and I go, okay, are we maybe being a bit short-termism? Do we need to be more patient here? And I will put it on the record before anyone gets in the comments, I think Poch is the man for this job. I think Poch has got a proven track record of working with young players, and I do think Poch can develop this squad once he's been able to get his hands on it, especially in the transfer market. But does that point I've just made nullify itself when you look at the job that your manager's doing, or you look at the job that Unai Emery's doing at the moment?
I think Unai Emery, Big Ange and Eddie Howe are doing things that are special. They're making chicken salad out of chicken shit. Like, it's not normal to do that. And even Pochettino has done that once upon a time. So he was the perfect example of that. I wouldn't right now go, Poch is the problem, get rid of him. What I would say is, we've blown money in the wrong places, and certain players are nowhere near what we paid for them. So we need to forget about the billion, forget about the amount of money we spent, and just say we're a mid-table team. Yeah. Because we're playing like one, we look like one, we are mid-table, and these players are delivering like mid-table players. And accept it, and have a bit of an identity situation where you understand, right, okay, we're not where we thought we were this season. We were hopeful. You were hopeful. Josh was hopeful. Of course. But it ain't that. So January needs to be massive, though. Like, and what I think is they should be looking at January thinking about next season. Not about this season. Chelsea have fucked it. Today was the chance. They've fucked it. But January, they need to look at what's available. Can we buy some serious players who can then build on in the summer? But I already think Chelsea have blown this season. I really do.
Last time out, last season, I'm talking about, we lost home and away to Manchester City. This season, we got a draw against them. Last season out, we lost obviously away to Newcastle, and we've done the same this season. But we also lost to Spurs. We beat them this season. And we've had a couple of good results, like the one at home against Arsenal. We lost against them last season, and we've had a draw with them this season.
Yeah.
So we have seen minor improvements. Now, the first thing people will throw at me is they'll say, well, with £1 billion, you should see more than minor improvements, and I'd agree with you. But I would say...
lost key players.
Yeah,
Kovacic, like solid players who can control a game. Like, imagine Kovacic today. We just slowed everything down. Like, things were chaotic. Kovacic is the best guy to just calm shit down, slow the... I feel like you made a mistake in letting him go.
And that's one you're on about, mate. But I'd argue there's one here. And I know that you're not going to put the emphasis on it as much because as a non-Chelsea supporter, you're not going to be watching us week in, week out. But RubenLoftusCheek is another one that added such a resilience.
Seen him the other week. He looked fucking great.
Yeah. There's a lot of players.
He is homegrown, right?
Yeah, he's homegrown.
And that's another thing of like homegrown players, as we've seen from Scott McTominay at Manchester United, they care. And
as we've seen from Poch, the ones he puts the armband on. Put the armband on Levi Colwill before Reece James came onto the pitch today. Reece James is the captain. Yeah. He sort of looked at the leadership team as Thiago Silva, Ben Chilwell, but actually when Reece James came out of the team, Conor Gallagher's given the captaincy. So I've got no doubt that a Mauricio Pochettino would have used someone like a Ruben Loftus-Cheek in a game like today. But what I would argue now is, much like you're saying, and this is massively ironic, like people are going to go mad at me saying this, but Mauricio Pochettino needs to be able to take the reins in this next transfer market in January, which is notoriously a hard market to deal in, and be able to go, right, okay, I'm going to get my hands on this squad now, and I'm going to ship out the players I don't want, and I'm going to get the ones I do want in. And again, ultimately, we're in for a rebuilding process. But I'll tell you one good thing. Unlike Man United here, we've got a lot of assets that will be able to move on and sell, and Chelsea always seem to do well in that. So I think it will level itself out. But I would like to finish the video. Well, I'd like to finish the video gloating about what a great performance we've had. But I would like to finish the video in giving a bit of credit to Man United here, because I think it's only right that if you give them, and listen, a lot of it is tongue in cheek with me, but at the same time, I'm sure if you're a Man United supporter, you've been getting a right out with me recently. Let's give them a bit of credit. They turned up today.
It could have been more.
You can only beat what's in front of you.
I think they could have scored more.
Mate, I said to you that the 1-0 win for Newcastle massively flattered Man United. A 2-1 loss massively flattered Chelsea today. It could have been 4 or 5.
The penalty miss from, and again, when you lose and your keeper's the man of the match, you know it's bad. And for me, Sanchez was man of the match. So the Bruno Fernandes penalty miss, Garnacho had multiple chances. Scott McTominay had a header, comes back at him, hits it straight back at the goalkeeper. There was countless opportunities where Garnacho cut inside, just wide of the bar. There were so many times where I thought, and do you know what? I am giving Man United credit, and they turned up and they performed as best as they could to the level that they could have. But there was one moment in the game, and it really, as a neutral, pissed me off. Nicholas Jackson, on the counter-attack from a Scott McTominay miss, Raheem Sterling is through on goal, cuts it inside. Nicholas Jackson, it falls to him, and you're thinking, any Premier League level striker at this point, any of them, hits it first time, top corner, boom, goal. And he takes a touch, and you're like, you pussied out. You bottled it. And he totally bottled it. And by taking that touch, he allowed Onana the time to come towards him, hits the keeper. And for me, at that moment, I was like, when your players are doing that, you're not winning. How can you do that when your striker hasn't got the bottle to just clip it first time over the keeper? It was poor.
There's only one thing you're wrong about there. You said top corner.
Wherever.
On Onana's recent form, wherever, mate, on target.
Anywhere.
Just on target, and it will do the job. But he didn't have the confidence to be able to take that shot.
Look, he was defensively, he was pressing the Man United defenders, and he did try. But quality-wise, he is a million miles away from me. As a neutral, again, not a Chelsea fan, he's a mile away.
Mate.
Put him on the bench, but you need to go out in January or the summer and get someone top quality.
I've come under a lot of stick for saying that I don't think Nicholas Jackson's going to be the man to lead our line in seasons to come and whatever on what he's showing at the moment. But ironically, when Chelsea were up there in the push for Champions Leagues and whatnot, and Olivier Giroud was playing for us, I was saying I don't think Olivier Giroud is the man to be able to bang goals for us and lead our game.
He is. Like, let's think about the level of Chelsea just quickly.
We can't reward mediocrity.
Chelsea are back, like, multiple Champions League winners, Premier League title winners. I'm just a Newcastle fan. Let's say from Chelsea's point of view, they look at Newcastle and go, right, what have you lot ever won? Fair enough, right? Right now, we have two strikers, who would have put that in the back of the net without even thinking.
That's just strikers. That's just strikers.
Yeah. Callum Wilson and Isak bury that. Your main man takes a touch and fucks it. And that's for the millionth time this year. So if any Chelsea fans are still rating Jackson, time to wake up, mate.
Listen, as a Chelsea fan, we're not looking at Newcastle and thinking, what the fuck have you ever won? We're looking at Newcastle. We're looking at Newcastle and thinking, my God, we'd like a bit of that, mate.
Tell me, mate.
It's going well for you boys up there, and long may it continue to be fair.
Well, we're playing Tottenham this weekend, so hopefully you're rooting for it.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah. To be honest, you could do us a favour by getting maybe a win over at Wolves or Brentford, someone like that. Listen, guys, it's going to be one of them seasons, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be a season when, as bad as it feels right now, sat in a moment and wallowing in defeat and a miserable performance like we have, we're going to have some good wins this season, you know. We've already had one against Spurs, you know. We've had one the other day against Brighton in a chaotic match. We're going to have some more good wins. But more often than not, we're going to be leaving games feeling like there's an immaturity.
Do you know what you got? Look, correct me if I'm wrong, mate. You just need to see that the progress and the building the process is happening. And right now, today was the first time where I went, I don't know. And that's why the next game is mega. Now, I don't know who the fuck you're playing.
Everton on Sunday. Yeah.
Huge game.
So I'll be here early for the kickoff because the Everton game's before we go live. Okay. So hopefully we get a little win and I might be able to pick your brains a little bit on it after, and we'll see what we think after that match. But
we'll do a video.
Ultimately, it is what it is. Listen, people, the world goes on. The world keeps turning. Unfortunately for Chelsea, we've suffered a miserable defeat tonight, but we'll see how we come back on Sunday. Guys, thank you very much. If you tuned into the kickoff live stream tonight, we'll do more of them. So please make sure you are subscribed. The kickoff is linked in the description to this video. Thank you to my friend Brian for having me and for once again getting in the video for this post-match review. Brian, cheers, mate.
Cheers, bro. Mate, sorry.
See you in the next one.
It's like that sometimes.